Hi, everybody. This is Mark Graben from KaiNexus, and I'm happy to be playing the role of host and moderator for today's webinar, which is titled How a Community Hospital is Creating a Culture of Continuous Improvement. And our presenter today is Mike McGowan from Marietta Memorial Hospital in Ohio. And I'm really excited that you have tuned in. And if you don't work for a hospital, I think there are going to be some good lessons learned and ideas here that will be applicable for different types of organizations. So thank you for signing in. I'd like to introduce my friend and our presenter today, Mike McGowan. Mike has a background in hospital laboratory. He has actually a more interesting background. I think I'll let him tell you what his undergrad degree is as he introduces himself. But Mike has been there within the Memorial Health System in various roles: Senior Director of Ancillary Services, most recently the Director of Process Excellence. And I first met Mike when he was a student at The Ohio State University. I think you're supposed to say it that way. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. In Columbus, Ohio, where he was studying in an excellent program there called Masters of Business and Operational Excellence, or MBOE. So I mentored Mike with his project and had a chance to visit him in the hospital a few times. And it's been great keeping in touch with Mike and learning about the progress that he and the organization have been making. You know, Mike has always been a very eager student of Lean, and I'm happy to have him presenting here today. So Mike, thank you again, and I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Mark. And I was actually mentored by the Mark Graben, so that was a positive for me. And so, yeah, I guess a little bit about myself quickly, as I did start out in laboratory, and we did some projects in lab, and then as we started to see some successes there, the administration suggested we do this Masters of Business Operational Excellence. And then we have since created a team. And so I'm here to talk to you about what we've tried to do for the last 5 or 6 years on changing the culture of a hospital, a small hospital system, to be thinking more about continuous improvement. So I want to talk about, we want to see what we use. We decided to use some different training roles to build and spread a culture of continuous improvement and Lean and Six Sigma. We'll talk about what we did well and where we could improve. I think maybe the where we could improve is a little bit more bigger, and talk about some leadership behaviors that are necessary to make this change. Anytime that you're trying to change a culture can be very, very frustrating, and it's a lot of hard work. I think that my team would tell you. I want to preface this discussion by saying that what I'm going to talk about is not necessarily a prescriptive roadmap for someone to follow. It was just our ideas of how we worked in our culture and knowing the folks that were running the business and working in the business. So I would like this to be a really good exchange of ideas. Some of the stuff may work for you and some may not. So we'll throw it up there and see what kind of feedback we get. So a little bit of background about us, the Memorial Health System. We're in southeastern Ohio, and we're kind of geographically isolated a little bit from the larger institutions, so that our role and our goal and I'm not going to read you the different things, you can read those, this place is to keep care local. It's a good 2-hour drive to any major medical center for us, for our community. So our goal is, we have 2 hospitals and 3 emergency departments and urgent care centers. We kind of own the city from a healthcare standpoint. And so we are striving to remain independent. We are an independent hospital, and keep as much care locally as we can. And at the last point there, we started our journey in 2013, officially, where we commissioned a team of CI specialists, continuous improvement specialists, and started working mostly as project-based. We were doing projects in different areas of the system. So the team is made up of six Lean, Six Sigma black belts, and led by me, the director. And as Mark mentioned, I completed the Masters of Business Operational Excellence from the Ohio State University. That's how we're trained to say it. And I think that they will always keep the director level position with that degree. Should I retire, hopefully soon in the next few months, years, I mean. And then our black belts successfully completed online training and coaching through more STEAM. So we know that they know their stuff, and they can handle just about anything thrown at them. So like I said, we started out with mostly project-based. And what we started to see over the years was that we'd do a project and there'd be some good implementation of countermeasures, and we'd see some progress. And then we'd go back in 6 or 8 months and it was all gone. We've seen that happen 2 or 3 different times. And we were trying to figure out how we can really begin to hardwire changes and make sure that things stick once you get done. A lot of that comes back to leadership. But we also wanted to do some, train leaders and what they needed to do. So we developed, and I think my team went to one of Mark's workshops and heard the idea of training different levels of people and trying to do this through training. And so we developed 5 different roles, and I'll go through each one here at the hospital too. Yes.
And before you go into those roles, I was going to go ahead and jump in as you had invited with a question. You say there were 6 black belts. What was the process? Because people often ask, well, how many of this type of person, this role should we have? Like, what was the process, or was it kind of experimental over time to determine that 6 black belts was it a good number? Was it the right number? How do you think about that?
Great question. Yeah, so it started out with 3, and we had built it to have me and a couple of black belts, and we had thought about hiring someone to do some statistical analysis for us. But then as we started to begin to work, we saw that third, you can't have someone do your statistical analysis for you. You have to understand what's going on in the department or in the area that you're working. So we went to 3. And then we added a 4th out of some necessity that we were having a lot of projects. And then when we look at our strategic plan, this is a good segue. We created a strategic plan in our department on an X matrix that by 2021 we would have a black belt working as a dyad with directors in the more quote high-profile departments. So for those of you who aren't in healthcare, you won't understand this, but healthcare, surgery, pharmacy, imaging lab, maybe nursing and materials, that they would work hand in hand with the director to help solve problems and improve their services. So then to that effect, we wanted to train 2,000 frontline staff. So the number, Mark, is we were going to try to get to 8, okay, at least, so that we could. So that was the long-term goal. So we're at 6 now, and we'll talk about why we kind of paused that here later on. So we decided to start. Our goal was to train 2,000 frontline staff as white belts. Then we'll talk about that, what that means. But we want to get the learning out to people. We want them to understand, what it is we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and so we're looking at different levels of training. So that's how we got to the 6 at this point, and we'd like to go to 8, and even our plan calls for 10, so that we can kind of keep a team and have some people still embedded. But we put a pause on that for now. So we also want to train all current and new leaders as yellow belts. We've been accomplishing that. And then we'd like to have at least 10 leaders complete the work to earn what we call green belts. Now, we could debate the belts, but it is just a different level of learning for each of the individuals. And I hope to get more improvement and more learning at the front line. So that's why 2,000 frontline staff. We have 2,500 currently working for us now. So the white belts, yeah, they're the frontline staff. We do a 2-hour workshop with them, and just to give them the structure and goals and understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about Lean or Six Sigma. They need to understand the basic vocabulary terms, and we expect them and we train them to enter opportunities for improvement or things that they see in KaiNexus. So if they're working on a project, KaiNexus is obviously our software tool. If they're working on a project, they can put that into the KaiNexus system, and then the leader should respond to them. And then they would participate on project improvement teams as the departments are in our vision. The department, the dyad, the director would be working with a black belt, and then all the folks underneath them would have some level of training, so we could begin to improve the entire system. And then our yellow belts, these are typically department directors or our leaders. We want them to understand the basic lean concepts and tools, and we throw some tools at them. We do a 2-day workshop with them, and then they are expected to complete a project that has certain tools that we associate with it. So they need to be able to complete a value stream map. They need to be able to come up with some graphs and KPI for their project. And then we would expect them to participate on teams and lead teams and assist with white belt training. And we haven't gotten quite there yet, but we've got some people trained. We've been working on that. Green belts, that's kind of our bigger dream of some. This would be the yellow belt that. And our yellow belt, go back. Our white belt completes. There's a 10-question quiz at the end of the white belt to make sure they're there and paying attention. And our yellow belts have to not only complete the project, they have to complete a 50-question exam. To rise to the green belt level, we would expect someone who's done yellow belt to complete 3 other A3s under the guidance of one of our coaches, one of our black belts. And we would expect them to really be a big leader in A3 improvements in the system and help with training of other folks in their department. So these would begin directors that have different levels of working with lean. And then our black belts, these are the continuous improvement team. We expect them to work with leaders to identify gaps and select improvement projects. And believe it or not, that's what's really hard sometimes, is to come up with what are we going to work on. We know we need to get better, and it's hard to get directors to put that into words and come up with exactly what they're working on. And then they coach and teach and mentor and train, and they're responsible for Lean Six Sigma implementation throughout the culture, and they do most of the training for green, yellow, and white belts. So that's the structure that we've created. And on our, and I want to go backwards, but on our the slide with the 5 people on it, we put the white belt first because those other belts, the white belt is the frontline staff. Those other belts support that. They're all support roles for that frontline staff doing the job. We try and preach that and teach that so that everyone knows that that's where it's supposed to be happening. The improvement's supposed to be happening. And then we have a champion who is usually one of our vice presidents or executive leaders who would help, select things that we need to work on and remove barriers and to support the change as we develop the culture. So let's see where
maybe we can do a few questions before we move into the next section of the slides. So can you talk a little bit more, because like you said, for people who are outside of healthcare, might not be familiar with the idea of a dyad leadership structure in healthcare. I mean, I think in other industries, sometimes you have quote unquote 2 in a box, where you might have a technical person and a business person working together in a leadership role. Can you give a little bit more background of how that works in healthcare and why that dyad structure was something you then applied to the embedding belts?
Well, we've only done it successfully in one area currently in pharmacy. We have one of our black belts who is assigned, her role is to be in pharmacy, working with the pharmacy team, and we're seeing some pretty good improvement there. The idea is just to be a coach, to be the sensei, and we try and stay away from the Japanese words, but sometimes you gotta use them to help them and say, we have a problem, so how are we going to solve this? What are we going to use to make the work better? I mean, in pharmacy, one of the things that we did, they were having a lot of IV medications being brought back that they had to put back into the system, and they were processing this in one big batch a day, and couldn't understand why all these are coming back. Well, patients are discharged, right? They don't use them. And so we got them working in a more continuous, 3 batches. We're not continuous flow yet, but they're doing it in 3 batches. So they've dramatically reduced the amount of medications they have to send out and log log back into the system. So that's just that kind of being able to see that, because the director is really busy doing other things. So the dyad person working up there can go and work with frontline staff with the support of the director. So that's kind of like an arm of the director almost. And we haven't really fleshed all that out yet. We've only done it in one department. We haven't really written any structure around it, but that's the idea of it. So they would work together on solving problems.
Yeah.
That help?
I'm sorry.
No, too.
Well, I was gonna, one other question was about the white belts. 2,000 white belts, 2,500 employees. You know, it sounds like you're getting toward everybody, but is that just or who would not be a white belt, or is that just a realization that some people are always kind of moving in out of the organization?
Yeah,
and never
exactly.
Get to everyone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that there's going to be this ebb and flow of people coming in and out of the organization. And so I think we would probably like to keep a status of like 2,000. I mean, probably the goal would be, although again, a lot of the discussion needs to be centered around the fact that this team about yearly or every 18 months changes our focus and changes the way we do things. We try and spend time reflecting on what we're doing and trying to improve it. So we've been really, in fact, I'm going to talk about a change that we made just in the last year that we've had to kind of adapt and move into. So I think that the 2,000 would be the folks coming in and out. We'd like to keep a level of 2,000 frontline staff, and I think maybe someday we would like to, I guess, I mean, the intake process or the orientation process for a new employee is 3 or 4 days, but we would like to take a few hours to get people as they come in and train them as white belts. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're thinking about that. So that number is kind of, when you're sitting at 2017, when we wrote that plan last year and a half ago, we said, what's a good number? We have 2,500. Let's shoot for 2,000.
Yeah.
So that's that number. I don't think we whittled it down far enough to say keep at 2,000. I don't think there's a magic number. It's just a matter of where the culture goes. The interesting part, I'm going to have a slide about later, but the interesting part about that is when you train the frontline staff who haven't had people talk to them about things, the housekeeper or the food service worker, and they start to realize that you're empowering them to start to solve their own problems, they get really excited, and then they want to learn more. So I think that's kind of where we want to get to.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay. If it's okay, there's a couple of questions that have come in from the audience. Is that okay at this point? So I'm going to combine, Jean and Marcia asked kind of related questions. Have you created all of your own material, which I think you answered, but you can recap. And then are your trainings done in person or through video?
Good questions. No, we stole most. No, we stole from different places. I had a lot of material from Ohio State that I brought back, and we've made some of it our own, and we've found some stuff on the internet. We do when we do the yellow belt 2-day training in person, we ask them to give us 2 full days, and we do a Kanban demonstration, and we do a flow simulation, and we show some videos, and we try to keep it interactive so that no one gets really bored of just me talking to them for 2 days, which would be interminable. So we try and keep it moving along, and so it's in person, and I think we've just taken. And it's changed. We've done it 3 different ways, and it's changed every time. And we go, okay, we don't like that slide. We tried it. We thought it was going to be good, and we'll sit as a team, the 7 of us, and go, okay, we don't like that slide. That's what we're going to make it be. And how do we get that point across? So, no, it's in person, and we are always continuously updating it appears. It feels like.
Okay. Great. And then there's another question here from Jenna. I'm currently a black belt with multiple projects under me at different organizations. I'm currently in an organization with a quote unquote lean team with what I would say is questionable belt training, and I'm not part of that team. Here's the question after the background, did you require your potential black belts to be trained or retrained by you, or how would you address a new hire with prior belt training?
Valid question. I think because then that's part of if you're on LinkedIn and you start to see all the discussion about Lean Six Sigma and who's trained and who's not and where we get it from, we pretty much set the standard as the more steam training. So if we had someone who'd come through the black belt training through more steam, we would say, okay, you're good to go. All of our hires to date have been from in-house. So we hire folks that that, we do a group interview and we ask them behavioral-based questions, and then the first 6-8 months of their tenure with us is spent working on that black belt through more steam. And then they have to do 2 projects with that, so it begins their work. There's 2 projects for that black belt through more steam. So yeah, that would be it. So if you come to us with a more steam black belt, you're good to go. We've never seen that yet. Otherwise, and we'll pay for you. We pay for it, but we would get you at that same level of training. So that was my black belt, and we're all the same. As close as we can
Okay, and then one more question, and I'll save some other questions for the end. But Kristen asked, do you train to a certain methodology, DMAIC or PDCA? If so, why did you select that?
Fabulous question, DMAIC. Mostly because for me, honestly, personally, PDCA always makes it, I don't understand what stage I should be in. I'm sorry to say that. But the MAIC to me is a more standardized approach. So we're going to define the problem, measure, analyze, improve, and control it. I think as long as people are, because I'm not going to sit here and debate DMAIC versus PDCA, but I think that as long as you're using some kind of scientific method to solve your problems, it doesn't matter to me what you're calling it, right? If you're using a process to solve your problems, it could be A, B, C, D for all I care, as long as we're staying with that process. That's my opinion. That's how I teach it. As long as you're good.
You don't want to debate ABCD. I was going to debate that with you, but
of course
I'll let you move on.
Let me slide.
So in the next section here, you can talk about some of the results and the benefits. So you've kind of teed up that you've got these different roles, this different type of training and belt levels and champion. So that leads to the next question of, what's the impact? How are you doing?
How are we doing? Great question. We've trained 220, actually 235. I looked at it yesterday. We kind of have this continuously ongoing. It was interesting because we felt that we would reach out to the department directors to say, hey, do you want your staff to be trained? And we put this notice out in our newsletter, and all of a sudden we had a lot of frontline staff going, we want to be trained, and the director didn't even know anything about it. So we've been working through that. We really like to have the support of the director when that happens. 219 yellow belts, and those are the director level mostly. And we've had a few frontline staff members become yellow belts. They were interested. They got white belt training, and they said, "Hey, I want to do yellow belt." So we're open to that. 0 green belts. We have had, we've only been at it a year, so we haven't had anybody complete 3 A3s yet to our satisfaction. I think we have one person who's completed 1. So I think that the for us and in healthcare, from a leadership standpoint, they're busy doing their job, and they see this problem solving as something extra. And as I talk to people and coach, I say, this is not an extra thing that you're doing. This is the job. And so we're getting there. Okay. So you can see our progress. Our goal was 200 for the first year. We just completed our first fiscal year with that. So we made that, and now we're moving to we want to get another 200 this year. Our year runs October. What the impact's been, we think that people across the system are using more and more of the terminology. They're focusing more on data when we talk about, and we're trying to get them to slow down. That's an issue. They want to rush and fix problems, but we think that more and more people are talking about, let's really define the problem before we move on. And then most of the departments are huddling, and then this is kind of come from admin that says we need to be huddling, but we started this 5 or 6 years ago. When we would do a project, part of the project would be you got to huddle, and you got to talk about data improvements and what you're working on. So I think it's been pretty good. And frontline staff, as I talked about, they're energized and engaged. When we go out and talk to them, they're jazzed. They want to try and make it better. They can see. And so we just need to get the alignment from leadership on that. And then Mark wanted me to talk about as we built this what the data-driven improvements were. So here's one of our projects, and this was on IV stop time. So for if you're not in healthcare, don't worry about this. But these are error rates. You can be anything in front of the word error rates, and you can see the goal was less than 10%, which still not good. It's not perfect. But but you can see the 3 different EDs were having some problems. Emergency departments were having problems with getting this proper documentation, which resulted in a lot of downstream problems and some billing issues. So once we began to work on it, and this was one of my black belts projects, you can see how those error rates, once we started to put some things in place with IT, we've been able to pretty much eradicate most of those. Now we're down under 10%. We'll see if leadership wants to go for that. We're in the red zone now. Does the leadership want to go for that other extra 10%? So that's some of the work that we've been able to do, and we're getting leaders to look at, think of things in a pass fail, don't look at averages, and begin to look at data that helps drive your improvements. So we're getting there. So what have we done well? We had good support from our executive leadership. They've anything we've asked for, they've done for us. They allowed us to add 2 people last year in our drive towards 8 embedded. We've paused that, but there has never been. We are pretty much on our own. We create our own stuff and we set up trainings, and they don't get in our way, which is just perfect. We did complete improvements in a wide variety of hospital departments. So we've been all over the building. We worked in revenue cycle and finance, and in our clinics, we have a whole bunch of physicians that we employ. Pharmacy. We start a big one tomorrow or next week in the emergency department. And then we coach leaders, students, and the new one to me, when I asked my team in preparation for this, I said, what could we do better? And one of their responses was ourselves. We could do better coaching within our team. So I think that's something that we're working on and we want to get better at. And then we implemented improvement software. The KaiNexus system has been instrumental in this latest venture. That I'll talk about here in a minute. We really like it. So that was a big step for us. So what can we do better? Here we go. Better involvement from executive leaders. While they have been very supportive and they talk about it, only 2 of them have come to our yellow belt training to actually begin to understand what it is we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. So they support us, go and do, but they're not out there leading with us. So we would like to encourage them to kind of step in a little bit more in the next coming years. Leaders still struggle to rush to solutions. If you've been in healthcare, this is what happens. Nurses and doctors want to rush in and be the heroes and save the day. And I think we push them really hard to fully define the problem and study it to make sure that we know. You'll hear my team going, do we really know this? So that's kind of one of the things that the system can do better. And then, like I talked about, we do more coaching within our team. I think it's an untapped resource that we kind of been missing on, and that the team identified it. So it was kudos to them. And then for our users, provide more timely updates to our improvement software. Access changes every month, and we got to do better at telling people what's going on with it. So that's what we can do better. And then we need to define process of resourcing the CI staff. We've been kind of, for a while, we were project-based, and we had a steering team, and then the administration did away with the steering team, and we kind of been, directors would come and go, hey, I need some help with this, and so we would do that. So coming up is a discussion on that. So we kind of had to derail our plan a little bit of embedding black belts, because we kind of hitting some financial challenges and we're not really hiring anybody. So we had to delay that development of the team as we go through this. And the administration created what they call a value enhancement program, which is they've tasked directors to have 3 90-day workouts, if they will, per every 4 months to try and drive costs or improve value in the system. So we're hoping that as administration begins to focus on these individual projects, it'll be a tool to resource my team to go and help, and the training with the yellow belts and the white belts will help that too. So the goal of the value enhancement program, or whatever we call it, is to reduce our cost per unit of service. So these are the folks. We have 2 folks that work on business development. If you see a chance to grow your business, these are the folks that you would talk to. And then if you're looking to reduce waste, we're the people that they would talk to. And what we've done in this cycle of it now, we've actually assigned the black belts, the CI team, 2 directors to coach them. So we said, okay, you know, each CI specialist has 8 or 10 people that they're meeting with routinely to coach them through these projects to help, and then we have financial coaching from our finance department. So what it looks like, and this is a screenshot from our KaiNexus system, each of the vice presidents has their projects that are running underneath them, and they can keep an eye on them, and they actually can manage that when they meet with their directors to say, how are we doing with the the healthcare source corporate compliance module project, whatever that means. And so that's how we monitor and watch that. At the bottom of this, you can't see everything well, but there's the KaiNexus system will total up as they put in proposed costs and proposed savings and the total chances. And this is how we manage each of these projects. So to date, we did 260 total projects. I thought the 75 of no value was kind of funny in that we basically tried, and it's actually a good learning experience. We tried some stuff. We thought this sounds like a good idea, but it didn't work. So, but we'll still try and celebrate those. The JDIs are just do-its, just things that they know they're going to go do. So we have 32 million in proposed enhancements with a fairly big upside if we can make all these things stick for the next year. So we're starting our 2nd cycle now, and with the coaches. Our newest feature, and I'm going to tout KaiNexus, and it's helped us a lot to focus, because when you have 70 directors doing 30 or 3 projects each, that's a fairly high number. We created a priority tool that allows administration to look at the more important things. So the higher the number, the more important it is, based on a set of criteria that we developed. So this is the new feature that we're using, and we're hoping that what we wish to have happen is that they would say, okay, that one that's a 10, we want to put the CI specialist on that, and you would work with the director and see that come to fruition. So we're really excited about this, and you can see the potential at the bottom is pretty good if we would realize all those savings. So Mark, I will turn it over to you. That's your slide. For any more questions or anything else?
There are more questions, so we will have a good chance for Q&A and you and I to have some more discussion, Mike. So thank you. Thank you for sharing the approach and some of the thoughts and lessons, and we'll kind of have a chance to dig deeper. But while you're catching a breath and taking a sip of water, I want to tell the audience, not that it sounded like you needed it, but it's just a good, here's your opportunity. I want to make a few announcements. We have upcoming webinars, and we're real excited about continuing those in the future. You can always find more information at www.kainexus.com/webinars. If you sign up for our blog newsletter, our general KaiNexus newsletter, you'll be emailed about future webinars. Tomorrow, if you are a KaiNexus customer, you can register for what's formerly, I think, called office hours. It's informally called the Banna Rippey Show, where Matt Banna and Ryan Rippey will amaze and delight you with some tips and ideas about how you can better utilize KaiNexus software. And then open for our broader community, including everybody who's registered today, whether you are a customer or not. It will be the 3rd webinar in the last couple of years presented by Jess Orr. And Jess is formerly of Toyota in the US. She's doing work at another company now, so she's got this really interesting perspective of having learned on the inside of Toyota and now going through the type of lean transformation effort that a lot of you might be going through. And she's done some webinars in the past, which you can find in our webinar library, about personal A3 problem solving. And on January 10th, she's going to do an extension of that. The formal title is actually going to relate to New Year's resolutions, Hoshin Kanri style. But the idea is talking about the Hoshin Kanri methodology or strategy deployment and how to apply that for personal goal setting and execution of your improvement plan for the year. So registration will be open soon for that. You can go to the next slide, please, Mike.
I'm sorry.
That's right. So as I mentioned, we have the continuous improvement webinars on demand library. We've got a blog. We actually have two blogs. One is for just anybody, and then a second one, I mean, anyone can read it, but it's a customer focused blog with tips and ideas for our customers. You can find all of that by going through the menus at kinexus.com. And one other thing I'd like to tell you about is our podcast series. The audio of this webinar, along with the others, will be in our podcast feed. You may have heard Mike and I did a short podcast discussion as a preview of this webinar. We do that in general with our webinars, and sometimes we share other stuff in the podcast. You can find that through iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. More information at kinexus.com/podcasts. And Mike, it's a good thing we have time for Q&A because we've got a lot of questions, and you can see Mike's email address there if you want to reach out and talk some more. So there's a question from Evan. I love that people feel empowered through your training. So how does the organization keep up the momentum and sustain that level of excitement over time?
Great question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're going to try to continue that. We're working with a badge system in KaiNexus so that as you complete some different things, it will automatically award some badges, and then we can maybe do some higher level recognition of people that are doing some really good work. We'll keep doing the training as people come in. But I think the secret sauce to it is that with the frontline staff is simply that if leaders are listening to the frontline staff, it will continue. If a frontline staff person has an idea and says, "Hey, Mark, I think that's a great idea," and Mark doesn't answer me for 6 months, and nothing ever happens. We were discussing it today with my team that they'd asked to do some things in one of the offices, and the previous manager had said, "No, we can't do that," and they just quit asking. So we're working with them now. So I think the secret is that it's going to come back. It always comes back to leadership and any kind of lean transformation or cultural transformation, in my opinion. If the leaders are listening to their staff and trying that will continue to build. If they don't, we won't.
Yeah. I totally agree. It comes back to leadership. And, the last really belt-driven organization I worked for, it was actually the last manufacturing company I worked for back in 2004, 2005. And they were really proud. It was good that they were putting people through a rigorous green belt training program. They had roughly 500, let's call it 500 green belts, and there were the certificates on the wall. Mm-hmm. I think the number of total green belt projects ever completed was 502, meaning one for each certified belt.
Right.
And then just a handful. And that's not the fault of the training. That's certainly not the fault of the belts. I think that was a reflection of the culture where leadership wasn't engaging people the way you were talking about.
Right. So we think that this new change with this value enhancement will help us get in front of the directors and be coaching them. I think that's really the only way that you can impact that. You give them a goal and kind of get out of the way, but you got to coach them. You got to tell them, bring this back to the center where if they get, because leaders want to run off and solve, and the hardest thing is telling a nurse that you can't go solve your team's problems. You have to teach them to solve their own, and that's hard for them.
Yeah. So talking about value and different dimensions of benefit, Gina asks, when you're selecting improvement initiatives to move forward with, do you do a preliminary cost-benefit analysis? And then I'll follow that up with kind of a related question. So from a financial perspective, do you do any sort of upfront cost-benefit projection?
At this point, no. They should be doing. I mean, we don't. They should be doing that with their vice president. I think that administration needs to be putting out where we need to be, and then people need to be hitting it. We're kind of doing it a little differently with the directors looking at their own areas, going, I can save this, I can. So there is no official cost benefit at this point. We just use that priority score.
Yeah. And there is KaiNexus functionality, by the way, that allows you to sketch out your preliminary cost benefit ROI and then follow that up and compare it to your actual.
Right. And what we found is that we're starting our second round. We did this last spring and we worked through the summer. What we've found is that most of the directors are doing what we call just do it, the JDIs. They already know what they're going to do. I just need to go do it. So really, it doesn't require any kind of buddy with a belt to. If you're, we look at them and say, if you already know what you're going to do, don't call us. Go do it. Right. We want to help you solve problems that you haven't seen yet or that you don't know how to fix. And so we're going to go get this low-hanging fruit, if you will, hopefully, and then this round or next, we'll start to get into some deeper and actually get people to change the way they do the work to improve it.
Yeah. And then Kristen asked, are belts leading quality improvement projects? And if so, how do they align with your quality and safety? What is DPT? I don't know that acronym.
Perfect question. And we just met yesterday with Jake from KaiNexus, not from Jake from State Department, Jake from KaiNexus, and we built a root cause analysis form in for our quality program, and we're working on quality collaborative teams, and we're going to build those into KaiNexus too to help drive that. So we hope to play in that arena. We would like to be invested in that, because I think for me, that's where we should focus. Let's improve the quality, and the finances will line up, I would think. But
yeah, and Kristen followed up DPT. She just meant department, so quality and safety department.
Quality department.
I was thinking through. You could also ask, how do those projects align with quality and safety metrics for the organization?
At this point, it's all financial. Okay. We should be lining them up with that, and I agree with that. It's a great question. We just need to kind of drive that question, and from the quality department, it needs to be, going. Don't forget this out here that by decreasing readmissions, we can do this. But that's one of those across department projects that we haven't really been successful at tackling yet. So we're hoping as we get more folks trained and understanding the process of solving the problems and working together, we can start to tackle some of those bigger issues.
Yeah. All right. Gary asks, when your improvement activities have resulted in a best practice that has broader potential across the hospital, what have you found useful to help replicate and roll out that idea?
Yeah, we haven't really tackled that. We haven't gotten there yet. We try and tackle it through standard work as we write up standard work and get people used to working with standard work. I mean, we're still in the infancy of this. When we started this plan a year ago, we just completed year one of our plan. So we really haven't had that opportunity yet to go, this is a new way to do this. Now, we did do it with, so I guess, Barbara, we should go back, like our IV stop times, we spread that across, that change across 3 hospitals, and we did it with 3 emergency departments. So we did that with standard work, and we set up the computer to work the way we needed it to work, to answer those questions and eradicate those errors. So I guess we have done some of that, but typically I think right now, where we're at, it would be standard work. That's a really good question.
Yeah, and in general, a lot of our KaiNexus customers use our software platform to help, with the repository of ideas that's searchable. So you can create opportunities for people to pull different practices or improvements into their own area. I think it helps to challenge people to build upon what's already there. You think in terms of maybe having better practices that aren't perfect, so others can adopt or maybe adapt the method or improve upon the method and share that back through KaiNexus. And then there are mechanisms to sort of, I think there's a time and a place to sort of push and nudge people and say, hey, we've done something that I think would be helpful for you. So what do you think? And present that to someone that.
Yeah, I think you have to say, what would it look like? What would it look like if we did this? I think for us though too, what we have found is that we look at physician clinics, and we've got a whole bunch of docs' offices out there, and they're all doing their own thing. So we may find success in clinic A, and we go, hey, let's spread that. Well, clinic B they're still doing family practice, but they do it completely differently. So when we start talking about best practices, I kind of go, the best practice is what works for you. So I'd like to take that thinking, we did this in this physician's clinic, and we improved this aspect Here's what we did here. What do you guys think about in your clinic? Because it may be one doc and 2 APPs, and it may be another clinic, maybe 3 docs and 1 APP, and they all have different roles and they all practice differently. To trying to herd those cats can be tough. So we try and just take that thinking. This is the thinking we applied here. What do you think? What can we do in this clinic to improve that measure? Because the physicians are still all kind of allowed to practice how they want to practice.
And that's a very general healthcare challenge.
Yes.
I think,
and that's not a slam. That's just life.
Yeah, it's just,
we have to understand. Yeah.
That sounds like that's a fair assessment of the current state in a lot of settings. So, Ira asked if you could elaborate a little bit more. Do you know some of the detail or some of the background information about how those IV error rates were reduced?
Yeah, I'm the wrong person. I mean, I think it was just looking at the way they were doing it in the times and how they. I mean, we could talk more offline, or I could hook you up with the black belt that did that project. But I know they changed some things in the computer system so that they were recorded, and I don't really know. I could pull it up on KaiNexus, but that would take too long.
Well, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, I'll invite Ira, if you're still on, reach out to Mike via email, and he can make that connection. But I'm looking at the chart that you had shared that shows the reduction, and if I were to draw a quote unquote control chart or a process behavior chart, it does look like there's some fairly significant downward shifts in those error rates, right, that go beyond the realm of just fluctuating and being slightly better. So I think there's good visual evidence there, statistical evidence of that reduction, going from the ranges of the one site looks like the average had been about 75% error rate, and then that average fell to about 10, where it's kind of above and below the goal. It's fluctuating, but it's definitely lower than it was before. So.
And then you get into the realm of setting goals. Should it be 0, right? I mean, so we discussed that a lot. Should it be 0? Should we? And where do you? Maybe we set the goal at 0 with a warning at 10. We'll allow you to work below 10% error rate, but if you jump up, then we need to come and help again. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're trying to indoctrinate that kind of thinking too. That doesn't have to be exact, but know when to react, and that's the subject of your most recent work, right? Know when to react.
Well, and there's an art, or there's different philosophies around goal setting. I don't know, as a non-clinician, what the impact of a stop time error is, but there are some, like Paul O'Neill, who was the CEO at Alcoa and has been involved in healthcare. He would talk about inspirational goals, aspirational goals of 0 harm, but on a year-to-year basis, you might set an intermediate goal of 50% reduction, right? Because you definitely don't want to set a goal of 0, not support people, and then blame and punish them for not hitting the goal.
Right.
What Paul O'Neill did and talked about was setting the aspirational goal, setting a challenging short-term goal, but then certainly providing the leadership and the methodology for how to get there. I think that's what keeps a goal of 0 from being, some people say, oh, that might be demoralizing. Well, let's do things that help it not be demoralizing.
Right.
All right, so we've got a lot of other questions here. Another one from Gary, with 200 yellow belts and your goal of 2,000 white belts, what are you doing then to embed continuous improvement into daily activities beyond projects?
Yeah, that's going to come back to thinking like 2-second lean, right? How do we get people improving it a little bit every day? And I think the trick will be to set reasonable goals on reasonable metrics. Focus on one or I was at a meeting last week and somebody said, well, we're focused on 12 goals. And I went, whoa. You can't do that. I think that we'll focus them on, in their daily huddle. We try and talk about what we're working on now. What's the goal? Where are we today? What went wrong yesterday, or not went wrong? What were the barriers yesterday that kept us from hitting the goal, or did we meet the goal? And the hard thing that we find in healthcare too is celebrating enough the successes to stop and go, hey, great job, that's way to go. So we've also got to get better at that, at celebrating our wins, because we do some good work. Did I answer the question? I'm struggling with.
Yeah,
so how do you begin to build that into someone's daily routine? And it's just giving them, giving that frontline staff housekeeper the ability to change how he or she does something and with the team, and is give them the ability to do that, right? Give them the tools to make their job better. So I don't know how else you would do that.
Yeah. Well, I think, to your point, making it a daily habit, that's kind of a circular definition. Leaders making it a daily habit to ask people what the barriers are, what could we do better, what ideas do you have? That's what Joe Schwartz, and I wrote about in our Healthcare Kaizen book, and there are organizations who make that effort. But maybe let me tie that line of thought to Stefan's question. What do you think about creating a burning platform or helping establish a sense of urgency to drive change? So we can ask that around sense of urgency to do projects, or sense of urgency to try to do daily improvement. Is there a burning platform that comes from leadership, or is this just a good necessary thing to do?
I think that leadership has created, when they share our financial situation and what's going on, and that there is a burning platform that people need to change what they're doing. I don't know what more. Yeah, that attempt has been made. So we're trying to show them this is one way to accomplish that. I can't think of any other better way than what they've done it. People should be getting it, right? That we've got some issues we need to clear up.
Yeah, and then there's a second part of the question: are there any incentives put in place, monetary or otherwise, or have you considered, financial incentives or other ways to motivate people?
Yes and no. When you complete the training, it's kind of funny, because people are like, we give them badge holders that are colored specifically for what the training is. So if they're a yellow belt, they get a badge holder that has a yellow thing. So that is usually enough. And we're working on badges, in the KaiNexus system, where, as I talked about, a leader could award a badge. So we're going to start going down that route. Then we talked, actually, we just had the meeting yesterday, talked about what kind of little financial incentives, but you try and shy away from any real big financial incentives, because I think that the intrinsic value of making your work better is the reward. Yes, and the recognition we talked about when we have like a large department meeting, bringing teams down and letting the leadership know what they've done, share that success, and celebrate them there, with the punch and cookies or something. Nothing really big. I'm not a big believer that money motivates people. I know it's a nice reward, but I'd rather have you just shake my hand and say, great job. We talked yesterday about having the CEO write thank you notes to folks on teams who have done good work. So as we start to recognize those people, to go, hey, thank you for your efforts. We appreciate it. That goes a long way versus a $10 gift card or something. It's just not, So we will probably try and shy away from large financial things. There might be little things, or parking place for a day or something like that.
Yeah, I think, when we talk about rewards and recognition, we can flip that equation. Recognition, like you said, goes a long way. Intrinsic motivation means a lot, I think, in different industries, when it's, how do you make your work easier, fix what bugs you, like Paul Akers says with 2-second lean. I think in healthcare, the intrinsic motivation to help patients is super powerful, and something to tap into as well. There's a lot of history from the realm of suggestion box systems. I saw this at General Motors, 1995, how dysfunctional that was when the company promised a percentage of cost savings to people, because the selection of what to implement was completely out of the control of people doing the work. There would be a lot of arguing and fighting and bickering over what an improvement was really worth, and all of that just ends up being a distraction from the challenge at hand.
Yeah, and did the improvement really impact the bottom line? Did it? That's kind of our challenge right now. If someone says, "Well, I've got this will impact $1 million," well, that would be great. But did it really? And did you sustain it? We've seen a lot of projects that we thought we had nailed down and would walk, kind of hand over to the leadership, because we would move on to, and that's a problem with being project based. If you're embedded in the department, you would go, "No, that's not that." We'd keep our eye on that metric. But we would move on to another, like more of a consultative role. We'd move on to the next project, and that one would start to backslide because leadership wasn't necessarily watching it. So you could say, for 3 months we did this and saved, $100,000. But if you let it backslide, then you really didn't impact anybody. So, yeah, that's all I got on that one. We'll try and stay away from financial rewards if we can, if I have anything to say about it.
Sure. Let's see, we've got a couple minutes. Michael asks, have you considered using elements of TPS such as Gemba boards? So some people would call this daily lean management, or other phrases like that. Lean management system, is that on the radar?
I'm kind of a student of Toussaint and his management on the MEN book, and we have huddle boards in each area. We've got status boards in some in our emergency department, and we're starting to incorporate status boards on the floor of the patient status. But yeah, huddle boards would be it so far.
Okay. Some of these questions are similar to things we've already addressed. So Mike, I'll send you the list of the other questions. I think we're similar, but if there's any of those that you want to address and reach out to people with, we'll go ahead and hopefully you can do that. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. As Mike said, if we end early, we give people a little time back. We'll give you a minute or 45 seconds back from the hour. As my friend Mike Steckline, who used to work at Catalysis, would say, well, we ended on time. So Mike, congratulations for that. We ended on time. But beyond that, I want to thank you for sharing what you've been doing there, and your progress and your plans for the future, and talking a little bit about how you integrate KaiNexus into that. So thank you for presenting. I want to thank everyone for attending and for all the questions that were generated. Mike, any final thought or thank you you'd like to give?
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
All right, and thank you. KaiNexus customers, tune in tomorrow for the Banna Rippy show, and hopefully we'll see the rest of you on January 10th. Happy holidays and best wishes to everyone for the new year. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.